Can a community destroy a content creator?
Ooh, okay. Where this came from in my head, can a community destroy a content creator? And the way I look at this is I'm not looking at necessarily like drama channels, like content creators destroying content creators. I was looking, and I'll be 100% transparent, is, how do I say it? Good on the last section. If you missed the last podcast episode, we talked about comments. And a lot of times I feel like comments can change if they come in strong enough, whether they're accurate or not. I feel like they can really weigh on a content creator in a way where they might act in a way that they don't even want to act because they feel like the community wants them to. Mm-hmm. And my example always that I've gone back to, but I would just love your guys' opinions, has been, the old days of, I've said it before, I had a whole video that I wanted to go out that I actually filmed before we relaunched the NES Pursuit, but I couldn't get it out in time. And it was basically me in the room just talking about how, like, the first time we did the NES Pursuit, we got pretty much nowhere pretty quickly, right? We got maybe a few hundred games, and that was like years, right? We're already at like 310 episodes. Not saying that's the right or wrong way. There is no right way. Wherever you're at financially is the right way to do it. Be respectable to where you're at. But I feel like I wish a Retro Rick came around earlier and let me know that you have 700 random games that you'll never play, you don't care about, you're not attached to them, you could care less if they got burnt in a fire, but you absolutely cannot sell them because you cannot be known as a reseller, right? And we've talked about this before. But it hindered me so much that I refused to sell these games that I didn't want to play, have no nostalgia for, don't care about, because I just knew that I could not be labeled as a reseller or my channel's done. Mm-hmm. And when I look back on that, I feel like it was so stupid that I allowed a very small portion of the community, I'm not going to say everybody, of course, the community has been amazing, but for those voices to be so loud that I convinced myself that that's how I have to collect. And if anything, it destroyed the whole point of the show, which was to get NES games, because I couldn't afford to get NES games, because I wouldn't allow myself to make money off any sort of video game that I couldn't complete it. But it's all because of those things that were pushed into my head so hard. Like, you can't, you better not. And I'll say now, I almost don't want to say it, but I do, because he's a friend of ours. Okay, whatever. Gabbo, our friend, I feel like sometimes that I see Gabbo makes so many jokes. We love you, Gabbo, by the way. He'll be on here. He'll probably be here he might be here on the next podcast, by the way, which we'll absolutely tell him about. There's no gossip in or between. Like, he says Scumbag Reseller so much, but I feel like there's a large portion of his audience that thinks he's being serious, and they have no idea that Gabbo resells. Mm-hmm. And I think he would be kind of scared to tell his core audience that he resells, because nope, Scumbag Resellers. Mm-hmm. I'm not a Scumbag Reseller. I'm not a Scumbag Reseller. We all resell here and there, right? We all do. Resell full-time, resell part-time, resell whenever it works.
I mean, I've never hidden the fact that I resell. I resell stuff, and I'm very happy with that. And I think the through line on all of it is, no matter whether you resell or not, be honorable. But I think that, like, going like Scumbag Reseller is that same metaphor of walking into the bar and go, look at all the alcoholics in here, and it's like kind of to get the attention off of you, Yes. And I think that's a little bit the same mechanism.
Wait, you resell?
I do. I resell a lot.
Times have certainly changed. Like, I remember watching your channel back in whenever that was, 2013, 12. Like, there was no reselling channels back then at all. If you were to have been the first one to have come out, you probably would have gotten crucified.
And that's not even my point necessarily of this, is like, we're talking about reselling, but I'm just talking for like your community pushing it into something so hard where you feel like you can't say the truth about what you feel. It'd be like, I mean, this is a totally dumb example, but let's just say Ricky's whatever political party. He's right-leaning, right? And he makes a joke about it, and everyone's like, oh, he must be left-leaning. And then all of a sudden he gets a big support for left-leaning. He's like, I'm kind of scared to say I'm actually not really even that. Yeah. This is all metaphorical. Maybe his, maybe his. You'll never know. But it's just, I'm saying, I feel like I've seen it before, and I've seen it in people to where they kind of like closet some things that they feel because they know their community wouldn't accept it.
So here's my question for you. So why do you think you cared so much about what everyone thought of you?
I don't know. Yeah. I was a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And I went through some stuff in my life when I deleted my channel to where I went to, you know, seminars and certain types of events and, you know, different biblical, you know, teachings and learnings.
But you had to get to the core of what that was.
I had to get to the core of being like, man, I am a people pleaser. And now I'll even say that I maybe went a little too far, not people pleaser. Like, I don't care what the F you think, bro. And maybe even a little too far.
Sure.
Right. But I just know that back then I'm like, man, like just, and I feel like it all got affirmed to me recently when Ricky and I started collecting NES again. And I'm like, why do I enjoy this so much?
Yeah.
And I feel like because I'm finally doing it the way that I want to do it. This is the way I want to do it. And I love that I can go to the swap meet and buy a bunch of crap and be like, cool, all these games that I'm buying are going to be free because I'm going to sell the ones I don't care about.
Some of what you're touching on, there's two things that my brain's thinking of. One is that some of this is about the sea change that we've experienced in doing this for 10 or so years. For me and for you, longer than that.
12 years, yeah.
For sure. There's been a sea change again of these have gone from being video games to collectibles. And so reselling video games to make a profit is bad. Reselling collectibles to make a profit is more gray, I think, in people's minds. And also there's a more of maybe a pro-business, mentality. I think what people are offended by is they see people overselling or overpricing games, like at retro game stores and stuff. When people price stuff.
Why'd you put your hand on Chris?
Oh, I'm just reaching out. I'm so sorry.
Chris is like, get waxed.
I'm a natural
Market
stretcher.
price.
Let me actually pause before you finish your sentence. I will say Chris is actually one of the best priced game stores I know.
Thank you.
Easily.
And the reason I say that is I will go everywhere I go now. I go to price charting before I buy anything, even conventions now, anything. And every time your store is literally always somehow perfectly just a little below price charting.
Yep.
We're tied into price charting.
Okay, there you go. That's why.
Yeah.
There you go.
I've always just believed in market price.
Amen.
People complain about the price. I'm like, it is what it is.
Go ahead, Mort. Now you can finish. I just want to get that out.
So there's that part of it, but ultimately, I do think that I lost my other thought. So let me just leave it on that, and then I'm sure it'll come back to me. But I just do think that we're in the middle of a cultural change within this world where we have gone, like, we weren't grading games 5 years ago, I think, or 7 years ago or whatever it was. And at that time, to buy something to resell to make a profit on it was far more stigmatized than it is now. But I don't know when did comics start having that stigma to it? Like, you're buying a graded comic? Like, did that ever exist? And if so?
They started grading comics in the early 80s.
Okay,
so prior to that, it was just people reading, but I assume there was some buying and selling of it, But if you went back to the 30s, it was just probably all people reading, right, when they came out. So 30s, yeah.
Now, to be back on par with like the topic, Mort, have you ever had that instance where you felt like when you were trying to take a creative direction in another direction, obviously, did you feel like you were going to be pushed into a corner?
This is a much bigger question. So strategically, when you are making YouTube content, is that what you're referring to specifically?
Yeah, for your community, you're switching it up on them. Their daily usual thing.
Yeah, I guess in a very small and consequential sense, I still get comments regularly about bring back the theme song that I have. I have a very goofy theme song that's especially prevalent in my older videos. And some people are like, I skipped it. And other people are like, bring it back, I beg you. And so, but ultimately, change is just an important thing of keeping things fresh. But here's the tricky thing. When you're making YouTube content, you can work with the game, or you can fight it and be bitter about it. And I think ultimately you have to do a little bit of both. Like, you have to take some creative risks when you're making something, because ultimately people want, I think, the passionate part of that creator. Like, if take filmmakers, for example, some filmmakers I go to see, and I know that I'm going to go see one of their kinds of films. And if they make a film wildly different that doesn't have their style on it, I'm probably not going to like it as much, but I might appreciate them trying something different because it might make them more energized to make their best stuff. And yet at the same time, if every time I went and saw a Christopher Nolan film or a Scorsese film or even a Wes Anderson film, and it was the same kind of film every time, it might be like, he's just Wes Andersoning, or whatever, which is some of the critiques of Asteroid City. But ultimately, I think I look at YouTube as much as an artistic platform, as a business platform. And I think of what I create as something expressive, not just for commerce. And that line of art and commerce is interesting, because if you're going to have to do something to make some money, you have to play the game a little bit. So anytime I do a hunting video now and I finish the hunt series, I I'm training the algorithm in a way and the audience to go, when that video comes up, I can't wait to watch that. When I do one of my other kinds of videos on my channel, it doesn't get the same kind of response. And I think you just have to kind of figure out how to adapt to those different things. And if my audience were to turn on me and go, I don't like this anymore, I'm done watching Mort content.
Do you think you would still keep producing it?
I think I would be discouraged, but ultimately, I've just been shocked. I think ultimately the more authentic that you are, as a creative, maker of things, the more authentic you are, the more I think the audience cares about that than necessarily the same formula of your show.
See, I've seen a lot of I know Aaron does a lot of just try to tweak it here and there, but I mean the only thing he's really tweaking, he's trying to do like a new thumbnail, see what kind of response he gets. He tries a new intro, he takes away the outro, and he does get a little backlash, but I mean, like, ultimately it's what you want creative, like your creative direction to go. Like if you don't feel like what you're putting out is not good enough, then you're doing it for what.
Well, if I can comment, so I'm not a YouTube creator, just never chosen to go into that path. But when I hear you guys talking about it, I think what you guys are referring to is like your audience is out there. They're in a sense, they're like the way my customers are to me.
That's
right?
a great example.
Like you can do whatever you want, right? Like I could with my store be like, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to sell bananas in my store, but like people aren't coming in to buy bananas. Like I could do that, but I need to cater.
These are retro bananas. They are old and they are graded.
But the point is that like I need to cater to who my customers are, right? But much like you guys kind of need to cater to who your audience is. I guess so. While you're feeling pressured into like, well, I want to be who I am, and you should as a creator, right? You do also have a captive audience that you're like, well, shoot, if I do this, am I going to lose everybody?
Okay, so here's my question, my follow up with that, and I won't name names on this one.
The analogy works, but it does break down too. Like keep going.
So my example question is, so at some point, what if you go, okay, I need to cater to my audience, but I have to, this is my store is, but to the point where you hate what your store becomes if it goes that far. So my example is a friend, I won't say his name, YouTube guy, did a lot of Switch videos, huge. And one day got to the point where I saw him at a convention. He came up to me and was like, I hate talking about the Switch. I am so sick of talking. I hate it. I literally hate doing it. I want to go jump off a bridge if I have to do one more video. And he tries another video, nobody watches.
Yeah.
So he in turn has to keep doing them.
Yep.
Yeah, Chris,
right?
like what if I'm your audience and I walk into your store and I go, hey man, I don't like the way your store's set up, or hey, it makes it like it's so disorganized. Are you gonna change something that you've already built?
Not off one guy.
Not off one guy,
no,
but if there was enough feedback.
All right, so let's say 50 people come in and that's your feedback. What is your response?
I would try to adapt to my customers. Yeah. I mean, that's not, maybe not with that example of one person, but if I was getting feedback that like
the common consensus
or like your prices are too high. Okay. Well, I probably should adjust my prices, or you don't have good customer service.
Okay, let's all go into Chris's store and say the prices are too high and just see how it goes.
Every person in the comments.
But I do feel as a good businessman, you do need to take feedback and understand who your customers or your audience is. So, probably you looking back on that time when you're like, well, geez, I wish I could have been more of this or done this. Maybe you might just at the time been reading the room really well, that this is just what you kind of had to do, whether you liked it or not. I don't know. Maybe.
But that's where it breaks down though. So your store is 100% a business. It doesn't mean that it's 100% like, you're doing this behind the counter, to get as much money as you can and at the cost of customer satisfaction, et cetera. But ultimately, I think, can running a business in a storefront be art? In the way that like creating a video can elicit or go after certain emotional responses. You can create community. True. But like I wouldn't go into Richard Rick's store necessarily because I'm going to have like an artistic experience. And I don't know that Rick is making his store to express something. It's not diminishing that, but I'm saying at some level I could make YouTube videos that are completely surreal and bizarre and don't generate very much income because it's purely art, but it wouldn't be a very smart business choice. I think finding the balance between those two things is wise, but ultimately, like, it's like when your favorite band, going back to Thrice with Dustin, they made these amazing sort of mix between punk and hardcore albums that were so good. They were on Warped Tour, and then they made like a Radiohead themed album, or style album, and their fans were like, what is this? But they kept going back because that was what they authentically wanted to make, and Thrice is still making
Beatles.
Arguably some of the Beatles is a great example.
Never stayed the same.
And I do agree with there is a difference.
Yeah.
And I'm not an
artist. And I hope that doesn't sound like I'm diminishing the
but
store
I'm not an artist. I'm not much of a creator. I'm a businessman. So I guess I'm using that analogy with customers. But I have heard like, again, I don't make art, but I have heard this analogy used where like, don't create art for your audience, create art that you like, and then your audience will accept the art that you like.
I think that's generally true.
It kind of is what comes first, I think is what we're talking about here. Yeah. So
I think being wise around that relationship's important. I care what people think about the stuff that I make. I hope that like people respond positively to it. I'm not making things just to disrupt the audience that comes in. And just like I would think that you care about people, your audience, your customers having a positive experience with your store, but ultimately, can that audience, I think the question that you're posing is, can that audience turn on you and sort of all of a sudden leave you in ruins? And I think that's a more tricky thing, I think, to get to. That can be just cultural factors. Yeah. That can be character factors, that like, there's things about our character that someone doesn't like or something. That can be a number of things, but I don't know. It's tricky. I care what people think, but I also care about making something I feel true to.
I'll ask Gabbo and I'll specifically tell him to watch this video too and leave a comment and we'll pin it. Like, what are his thoughts about, like, no, because I'll tell him. I get it. We don't gossip about our friends. So I'll tell him, I'll be like, hey, we brought up this. Like, do you ever feel like, you kind of have to steer away from like, I'm not a reseller. So I don't know. I'm just curious if his brain, where his
to bring Ricky into this equation and kind of a little bit of his thoughts. Because I mean, he was a little quiet over there.
Sorry, hold on. Can I say one other thing really quick?
No, you can't. I'm the guest. Just kidding. No, you're good, Mort. I love you, man. Here you go.
I love you too. There are also grades of resellers. Saying I'm a reseller can mean I do it full time, and it can mean I resell some things to supplement for other things. So I think when Gabbo resells, I'd be curious to what level.
It's very minimal.
Yes. Because I think some people hear that and they go, "Wait, he's Phoenix Resale, Gabbo the Giver."
But there's the purists out there that they don't that almost means nothing. You're a reseller. You're such a scum. It's like, what? I saw a comment of someone telling Retro Rick that he deserved to have his channel created, and they used God and Christianity because of his greed as an example of why he should have had it happen.
Yeah.
Those type
And I actually in one of the NES Pursuit videos coming up, I do like a 3-minute holding the camera talking for 3 minutes just ranting about this because it made me so mad.
Yikes.
And I'm like, what kind of, don't try to bring the Lord Jesus Christ into this to say that Retro, like, get out of here with your idiocracy.
Yeah, I can't help it if God chooses to bless something that I do, but I can help it if I love the money more than I do God.
Yes,
that's the part that I think matters.
Of course.
All right. Ricky is on the channel and someone doesn't like Ricky and they're just attacking him constantly. How would that make you feel to a point like?
Oh, dude, I think from the beginning, we really didn't care about comments. Like, it just goes over my head. Like, comments to me, we just laugh. We call it the trollers.
Ricky and I, if anything, we have so much fun reading that stuff.
Oh,
we will just laugh. I mean, what was the number one question we used to get on Retro Liberty? Number one question:
are you guys gay?
Are you guys a couple?
That was me.
Yeah. And I would reply to him, yeah.
And ultimately, hey, you know what's ultimately the best part about this is that we all get to do like the fun part of life. You know what I mean? We got to hang out with our friends. We got to make them all jealous. You know what I mean?
We are beyond blessed with what take even money out. Take money out. See, money doesn't exist in this equation. We're beyond blessed of what we get to do. Of just have a camaraderie.
I would do it if there was no money.
Do you recognize how rare this is? What we're doing?
Yes,
we are adult males at middle age ish who are just enjoying friendship. That is very hard to do when you get siloed because of family, because of work and everything. What a cool thing to have.
It's precious.
A very public way, whether you mean for it to be or not, but just to have something that you enjoy doing and you have good friendship. That's a beautiful thing.
It's precious.
Agreed.
And I think a thing that for us lets us be able to see that more and like recognize it is having it on YouTube because we see the comments of hundreds of people at this point, thousands of people at this point, like, man, I would kill to have what you guys have.
That's right.
And I agree. Like, it's just something so special that there is no second thought about what I tell you guys. Like, I would never even blink to think there's any ill will towards Curtis telling us a life situation he's going through, Chris struggling with something.
There's so many instances where I'm having a side convo, not even like with you guys, and I'm just breaking my heart to Ben. Like, Ben literally is always there. Like, I literally tell how much we all appreciate you, and he does it verbatim.
Yep.
I'm speaking for him because he doesn't have a mic for him, but
I
know we literally share the same sentiment about all you guys.
Yep.
You know.
I'm gonna take this another layer.
Yeah,
more,
please do.
There's this amazing study from Harvard that came out that they studied over 200 men over a period of around 75 years. And these are some of these men, I believe, like had high levels of office, maybe even president. I don't remember.
Wow.
But the point is, they followed them from their whole lifespan, and they wanted to answer the question of what makes men happy. And they answered the question. Do you have any guess?
Well, now I want to guess.
Well, if it's Riff and Ricky, it's other men.
Is it?
What do you think? Seriously.
I was gonna say.
I mean, this is vital to know.
I was gonna say vaginas.
Jesus,
that's where Chris is at.
I'm gonna be like, what?
No, leave it, bro. Water is the same thing.
I know.
I would say health and family.
I would say friendship, maybe friendship.
100%.
Friendship,
relationships.
Yeah.
So people could have high cholesterol in their 50s, and you could compare. I might be screwing this up a little bit, so correct me in the comments. But you could have high cholesterol in your 50s. And have good friends, and you would live longer than someone with a perfectly healthy heart, but that was lonely. And so the point of it was, you don't just live longer, you live healthier when you have meaningful relationships. And so having just an ability to do that, and that can be really hard for people, and I can empathize with that because it is very difficult to do. But I think it's vital for and they only studied men, by the way, because I think it was at a time when women weren't going to Harvard yet. And that's how far back the study went. So I think it's just such a vital and important thing to have good friendships and good people in your life, not just because it feels good, but because it's true to how life is best lived.
Wow.
And if you shut down this core, it's not going to be possible because we are strong, brother.
Oh yeah, you can. And to answer what Curtis kind of asked Ricky earlier, like there could be 1,000 people in the comments saying we hate Ricky, get him off the channel, and
he wouldn't
give
be
him
gone.
a big cool man. Don't worry about it. Nothing's happening.
Find another channel. Yeah.
Ricky, you're out. No, I
Riff would start his own channel called The Riff Show.
I wouldn't blink. Not one person would be not. It's just not possible. The friendship is far more important than any YouTube finance or anything like that.